geluba naqdoogliyo nugal waa ku darara melay nabadi joogta.
Welcome to ISIRKA. My name is Amina Isir, and join me as I take you on a journey to explore identity, culture, and belonging. Take a seat as I take you through time, space, and various perspectives of cultural identity. Stay tuned to see where the journey will take us today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of ISIRKA. So today I was listening to Somali music in the car, and then there's a song that came on that I remember listening to when I was younger. And then I was listening to the song, and then it was basically like, it was about a specific like town or like region, like Rermi area. And the person who wrote it lives in the diaspora, but he's basically like through like the singer and through the song, basically like you know, and what it's like. And he's basically at one point he was like, there's no better place to like go with your like and start a family than, you know, like that village. And then he's also then from there like you know, like that are meaningful to his tribe, or like like, you know, with a digger. And then I was like, okay, like, you know, do. And then there's this like Sultan Serar, like in Pt.2, and then he did a recent performance in Nairobi for like Ogaden Independence Day. And then he's like kind of listing cities and like villages, right? Like like line by line over and over. So the song where he's talking about like Ogaden, and he's like, you know, and then that makes sense, okay? You know, it's like a political song. It's like for our regional state, it's for our ends, you know, we need to represent. But then in Pt.2, it's just like, you know, just like a casual like love song. And he's also still mentioning like the same areas that he's from and stuff. And I was like, okay, how many Somali songs are really like taking us back to like specific like towns, villages, regional areas, and like geographical locations? So when I did a mix a couple last year, probably this time, like Rep Your City, and it just kind of includes like a bunch of those songs where people are like literally going through like town and city, like, you know, regardless of geographic area. So Djibouti, Somaliland, Puntland, Somalia, like Kofurta, like, you know, even like northwestern for like district in Kenya, and Ethiopia, Somalia, like Ogaden, like it kind of like encapsulates Shanta Somali, right? Like towns and cities and all of those locations. But that was like for a specific like, you know, like need that I was kind of like seeking out like where that was and like putting all together. So it's like, listen, everybody's representing for their own, they're representing their hometown, you know, like, and so let's just kind of bring it all together. But this episode, How Far Would You Travel for Love Part 2, will be a little bit different. So I originally wrote about how far would you travel for love, talking about my experiences of going back home to Somalia. And it wasn't that the story started with going back to Somalia. I think in going to Somalia, then I realized how everything beforehand was kind of feeding into that experience and kind of allowed that experience to make sense within like the everything else that was going on. So I always kind of talk about how like my family lives all over the world, you know, we always had to travel to go see them, and it was something that was very much outside of like my day-to-day. So when I was listening to these Somali songs, I was just thinking about how much of like are we learning about these places and cities. And like me and Zuhur, I'm sure it's like even talked about it on the first season when we did that episode about Bring Riwayats Back, about how we've learned about these cities and these areas that we've never seen with our eyes, but we already kind of know. We have a familiarity with it because of stories that our parents shared with us, and because of songs, because of riwayats. Now with YouTube, you can see everything. Qais Qaisar is a YouTuber that really is kind of like blowing up. Like he's gone through also throughout Somaliland. He just went to Mogadishu. He's been in Djibouti the past couple of months, and he's like one person that's doing like an amazing job of really showing people what the country looks like now. But I think before we had YouTube, and as well as like before the YouTube phase, then there was also photographers that were really big within like the Somali context, that have become very well known because they're showing us if like what the country looks like, you know, what it looks like back home, and making that accessible to us if you're not able to go there, for example. But before all of that, we always had stories. We had our grandparents, our parents, sharing stories about the places that they went to, that they lived, and what it was like. Me personally, you know, like until my mom came on here, she never really talked about what it looked like, what the country looked like and what it was. Same with my dad. It was more so we had these experiences there, but in terms of like, we used to live on this street and this, you know, that like that type of nostalgic memory they didn't really have. I'm a nostalgic ass person, very like emotionally connected to places and things, and memories. And so how far would you travel for love now in this episode? How far would you travel for love part 2? I want it to kind of be about, I'm going to like sample some songs of talking about different places, and then kind of share also like what that meant to me. I'm also really interested and really would like to put together an episode about like you all, like the listeners, people that I know, kind of sharing about what these different places mean to them. I think that there is no one size fits all, you know, like everything is relative, and depending on, you know, your own personal experiences and what you went through, and how, like, define how you relate to a place or a city, and you also give it meaning on your own, you know. So the ways that I give something meaning will obviously be different than the next person. So I really want to do an episode about Hargeisa as like the epicenter of like arts and culture, and the legacy of that, I think, will forever be held with Hargeisa, as well as since then, kind of what are the things that Hargeisa is known for and how has that changed and evolved throughout time. It's very like great to see the way arts and culture are kind of like being, and music primarily is what I'm talking about, is being revived back home, and now there's actually spaces for it. Astan TV is really doing the damn thing. Astan TV is on fire, and it's really like they're doing amazing work when it comes to music and giving a space for artists to sing, and with great visuals in the background. There's like this one song that is like my absolute favorite song, and it's Bin Abdillahi and Ahmed Ali Igal. They sing this song, and then so then there's these two like contemporary singers that are singing it like right like in front of the beach, and then the people playing the instruments are kind of sitting like behind them as they're singing, and then it's like the most beautifulest like clear day. It's so beautiful. And that's why I'm like, oh, that is our homeland. But anyways, so feel free to drop me a message on ISIRKA at Instagram. Share with me what Hargeisa means to you. What are other cities and places back home that hold meaning to you, and for what reason? And then I'll inshallah compile them in the future into their own episode. So before we get to that point though, listen to my travels of the Somali region. right, so that first song was Somalinimo. I think like a lot of, well, I don't know about a lot of us, but that was definitely one of the first songs that we learned, like that I learned as a kid. And there was this one riwayat that had all the Fananin, and they used to all come together in the early 90s, and then they would sing that. And then we used to sit in front there and singing Somalinimo. So that was definitely one of the first Somali songs that I learned. And that is really like kind of, you know, just the imagination of a unified, like proud, like one Somalia. And that was what some people wished for and believed in back then. And so let's see where we end up next.
Bukasa kaligi yiri naftayda ana boqre muxuu isla buuxiya warbelista dadba bumbuniye madicin doraad balaayo madicin doraad berrina sadaashu wacan inaan biyo mayri karayn inaan birna lagu jarayn inaan biyo mayri karayn inaan birna lagu jarayn inaan baana lagu dawayn berriyo maanta barun yahay si fiican hallo bartee bilaal adin baanu niri
Okay, so if you have been listening to anything on this podcast so far, then I'm sure you know at this point that I have been an Abdelkader Chupa fan since I was a kid. And I was talking about those riwayats that we watched earlier. There was also one that happened in Toronto in the early 90s. And like I watched that on replay. That's where we learned Somalinimo from. But also this song, he's singing in that same riwayat. Alongside with him on stage is Fatima Nakruma Nahrista. And oh my god, and singing like if y'all don't do anything, go on YouTube and do Fatima Nakruma. And then she's wearing like a sequin purple top. And she's and then there's like a international like Red Cross flag behind her and the Canadian flag on stage. So she was there. Hassan Alan Samatar was there. Khadra Dahir was there. And then they had this other guy singing Dileya Adale. And Toronto was the spot. Like in the 90s, like that was a Somali hub before Minnesota kind of took over. So it's an amazing footage. Also just like a legendary, like once in a lifetime type of moment. To also see them so young, but people like really like loved Funka back then too. They were still like always down for a party. So that song and Abdelkader Chupa, that one and Dawo Da'alada, Bur'a Dawo Da'alada, where he goes all across the country, are songs that always remind me of my childhood, and that I love. So let's see where we end up next. So at this point, you might get sick of hearing riwayat and riot, but I do remember also Sahra Ahmed. We listened to her a lot, and she was in so many riwayats, and Ifi Akhiro especially was a riwayat that I remember watching a lot. And now that I'm older, like I like a lot of the other riwayats, but this one, I'm just kind of like, and even in the song clip that I chose, I just think it's so interesting that she was able to really just kind of talk back to her parents and tell them honestly, like, y'all got me messed up, and you guys aren't like, you guys are being very selfish in this regard, and I should still be able to exercise my own agency and make my own choices. And if me and this man love each other, then I should be allowed to be with him. And you guys are being selfish. And I think that, like, in an era and a norm where we're like, oh, kids are to be seen and not heard, that was very powerful, that she was sticking up to her parents in that way, in that song. And so that song kind of, like, culminates, like, I would say, early childhood Somali music. Now, the next one, I'm very excited to talk about. So, Hableo Hadmad Gursan Dontan. Young ladies, when y'all gonna get married? This riwayat is on YouTube still, and there's so many different, like, iterations of it. There's, like, a full, it's in parts, it's a classic, you need to watch it. And now that I also understand Somali, I was like, yo, like, what on earth is going on here? Some of them were straight up gold diggers. They were really, like, just trying to get theirs. And every single diaspora man or man who was rich, who came back or who was around them, they were definitely trying to make sure that they got theirs from that. But I remember being a teenager. I remember, like, a late teenager, and watching this riwayat, like watching, like, this specific scene when it's the four of them. It was Sad Ali Launa Hrista, Qamar Harawa, Fainuz Sheikh Dahir, and Hibonura. And Sad Ali is wearing a beautiful pink jumpsuit. Qamar Harawana, she's, like, wearing this shimmery brown outfit, but with gold dripping all through it. And then Fainuz Sheikh Dahir is, like, she's kind of dressed like a tomboy. She's, like, wearing, like, a sweater and, like, sweats, but she kind of is, like, the boss woman that's, like, kind of, like, in charge of, like, connecting them to men and stuff like that. And then Hibonura is the sweet, like, docile, cultured woman. And then she comes in the end, like, listen, what you guys are doing, this modernization, this, like, Somalinimo is wrong. Like, you need to go back to the culture and back to our roots and have respect and carry yourselves like dignified Somali women. And these other women Saad Ali's character, Qamar Harawar, Faydu Sheikh Tahir, like, listen, we're in a new era. We can do whatever we want and we are free. And I talk about this a lot, but Ruwaids during that time definitely always showed the contention between modernity and traditionalism. But it was still just so amazing to see their outfits, the freedom, and the way that they wanted to express themselves. And so now we're like, okay, the 80s was like intense. A lot of people went to go work in the Arab world and were always coming back with that Arab money. So it also is just kind of telling of the times. But that was like a song that I like played over and over and over again until I was able to like memorize the words and understand them. So that was kind of me coming back into Somali music. And so the next one is really kind of like, you know, what I listen to a lot.
naftaydu kuma yaqoon inaad tahay nuucan baas haweenka naxuusiyo igooda banuugaye nasiibka igu ka daree naftaydu kuma yaqoon inaad tahay nuucan baas haweenka naxuusiyo igooda banuugaye aniga hoy aniga hasku kay nabnabi darurana hayga sugin inaan nuglay hawmalay waryahe hawmalay onika hawmalay aniga hoy aniga hasku kay nabnabi naruran hayga sugin inaan nuglay hawmalay waryahe hawmalay onika hawmalay nadamka kurkayo hadda nolosha aqoon aniga nahay waran niyadana iga jabin
waxaad tirahay haddaanad noloshada aqoon. Like basically, if you don't know Wagwan, don't come for me and try to ruin my life. When I was putting the last song up, I remembered Marian Mursal, and I remember like how much when I was like in my early 20s, like I really listened to her a lot. And she, like, I mean, God bless her, like she was definitely, she's a boss. But Layla, like when she's singing for basically what the Kika Takte, she's like lamenting, as she does all of Somalia. She does like the north, the south, the northeast, like she does Somali Ethiopia region, everywhere. And Somali Udi the Eb, like those two songs were like very big and like probably also like gained her like popularity like in a mainstream. Like she did an album when she like first got to Denmark that was released, but those two were very big and I chose not to do those songs because I think actually I had Somali Udi the Eb like I think in my first podcast episode, but this song I think is like, you know, a song of kind of her owning her power and owning her essence. Like she was definitely somebody that every time like society tried to limit her, put her down, she still kind of flipped that around and did what she needed to do and harnessed her own power, and that still kind of exists today. I don't think she's singing as much anymore, but she definitely, like I remember seeing her in London 2015 and me and my cousin were like, oh my god, we're going to see that queen. And it was like even probably one of the last artists that like of our parents' generation that was still accessible to us. So that was really cool to see. So for the next song,
dhammaystiran kaalina datume gobolka Nogob gobolka City gobolka Faafan aad ka soo dhaadhaleen dhulka wayaad dhandhoolanay ka soo dhaadhaleen dhaxya dhulo ha dhulka wayaad dhandhoolanay ka soo dhaadhaleen dhulaf berde ha qorraxaydhal ha Shabeelle ha aad ka soo dhaadhaleen dhulka wayaad dhandhoolanay ka soo dhaadhaleen laguna halkii lagu dhalee dhayda lagu habiya dhaxya dhulo ha dhulka wayaad dhandhoolanay ka soo dhaadhaleen.
So I was very late to the game when it came to Danto, but when I did get familiar, oh my goodness, it was like good that gale. Like I was very obsessive, and it was just like everyone really got into it. It wasn't like one of those like, you know, normally people listen or like dance along to Somali music. It's kind of like a chill like 1-2-1-2. Nobody's really trying to like do too much. Like they're almost like too cool to even like dance properly. With Danto, I was like, these people are breaking a sweat. It's like legitimately a full body workout. But after I saw Ali Danto in London, that like I was like, wow, people really love the Danto, and Danto kind of bangs. So I definitely became a Danto fan after that. And I just also love the way that like even when Danto artists, like in their music videos and things like that it's always so traditional. Like they're gonna wear like the white shawl with the green belt, and they're gonna have camels in the background, and they're gonna be out amongst nature. Or even if they're like in town, it's okay. First of all, Ali Danto's early music videos when he was in Chick-Chiga all look like as amazing of a party as the Somali party could be, but like amazing, like really nice like homecomings. I understand like the state like there's a state sponsored music troupe, and it's like really kind of like probably heavily governed by like the local administration. If that's not the case, like don't come for me, I don't know anything about politics there, but I'm like, these look like great parties. I was like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I would have wanted to see, you know, when I first went home. Like confetti everywhere, and all the women are doing their little Danto, and the men are doing their Danto. It's a nice party. I like definitely like you can't not bop to a Danto song. So yeah, so that was like the next journey for Maryam Mursal. Then I was like, okay, let's see what else is out there, and I will love anything that feels like as intrinsic Somali as possible, but to kind of take us on to the next one, let's see where we end up. had to give Hargeisa its time, its moment after London, or in between London. It was Hargeisa. Those couple of years were all about Hargeisa, trying to absorb what was happening at the time, what was happening musically, culturally. A lot of my time in Hargeisa was rooted in a lot of like arts and culture type of things. So I always loved hearing the way people talk about Hargeisa, especially from that angle, because I think that aspect is kind of lost now. There's a lot of censorship going on in the city and like the social climate, but there's a lot of I would say in the past couple of years too, there's still a lot that's happening that wasn't happening when I first went. So there's definitely a lot of cafes and a lot of spots. Like now, a few nights out of the week, you can go see live music somewhere. So that love of music, or that kind of like claim as Hargeisa as the capital of like Hoigi Funka, is slowly coming up. But also I think that it's really cool that that's a part of its legacy, and would like to kind of see how people continue to build off that, because that's still something people always like, like they always refer to that. So next, let's see where we end up. So when Sultan Serar dropped Samir Duaisen, that was also around the same time that he like dropped Hamar Bila, and then he did this song called Amina, which is like the world's longest song. It's 14 minutes. And so when I went to Mogadishu, before I got there, I saw Sultan Serar that year in Hargeisa, and then that's when Hamar Bila took over, and then I went to Hamar. So those two, Samir Duaisen always makes me remember that trip. And then this song with Hodan Abdurrahman and La Fole and Ahmed Rasta and all of these artists from Mogadishu. It's called Hesti Benadir, but it's from 2016 too. I don't even know when I got stuck on it, but I love that song. It's like it's like 16 minutes. It's a very, very long song, but I love that song. So I put those two songs in there together to commemorate when I went to Mogadishu. So after that trip, that was the last Somaliland, like Africa trip. So let's see where we go next. So after my trips, I started really kind of going back into this ISIR process, and I started my Instagram page where I was posting all these old like music videos and songs that I really just wanted one place to capture all of them. And then after that, the panini happened, and then that just kind of launched this podcast and everything else to take full steam to really look back and reflect on everything. So this song is a Hanuniya ala Naharista, and like the most fitting song. So it's about Dalo aragtidela, but then at one point he says Amina kadorto dechi mel barwaqa. And I feel like all my Somali adventures were definitely about travel, and so I'm glad that I was paired up one of the most beautiful places in Somalia. But also after that, I really started looking for like collecting all like Amina songs. So like I mentioned earlier, Sultan Serar song is one of my favorites, but I would have to say special shout out goes to this Hanuniya song, but that's not really like a full Amina song. So I'm just gonna end this off with my favorite, Harir Ahmed, and he dropped this song a couple years ago. It's called Aminai Marwadi Qardiga, okay, Queen of the Century, ladies and gentlemen. And I think what's really cool about also kind of like doing this whole ISIRKA and kind of going back and learning about your culture and stuff like that is when you kind of grow up in like dul aanad like dulkaaga ahayn, dadka kolba markasta markay ku weydiiyaan oo magacaaga, like, you know, sidee loo dhahaa magacaaga maxaa waay micnaheega. And so it's so cool just kind of like once you tap into your like cultural norms, like the way your name is also pronounced differently, like and the meaning that it has and the way in which people recognize it. And I think honestly it's that recognition above all, the recognition and the representation above all, which is so important. So I hope you enjoyed this mix. You kind of literally went with me through time and space. Going through time and space to understand my connection to Somalinimo in the realest way. I just chose to reflect it through music in this episode. So please stay tuned for the Hargeisa episode. And if you would like to share any of your feedback, feel free to holler at me on Instagram _ISIRKA. And so I'm going to end off this episode where you traveled with me through time and space to understand Somalinimo with my favorite Amina song.
Aminay, Aminay, Aminay quruxdaada farxada qosolkaaga qorqornida joogaaga qiimaha sharaftaada qorqornida joogaaga qiimaha sharaftaada yaa sadalkaaga aqab weyni la'aanta ahubal qotankaaga anafta ugu shuucda ahubal qotankaaga anafta ugu shuucda qacdal kuwarkaba qasdiga xigmadaada laabta ku qabowda marwadii qarnigay quwee kalgacaylka marwadii qarnigay quwee kalgacaylka marwadii qarnigay quwee kalgacaylka